Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on my channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to take a look at the best 10 brawlers in the game right now and the best 3 brawlers to counter every single one of these. So some of the brawlers are so good that only the meta brawlers counter them, but I at least try and give you guys some tips on how to counter these brawlers, because again, this will really help you out in ranked and just your overall knowledge of the game. So make sure you subscribed if you're not already, because again, it's coming towards the update cycle, so you guys don't want to miss out on any of the fire videos. So I like to do this every single update, and we're going to be starting off with the 10th best brawler in the game, and that is going to be Amber. So Amber for me is a pretty solid brawler in a lot of different scenarios. So the best brawlers to counter to begin with, it is Crow. So I know Crow is very off meta and he isn't exactly the best, but if you're facing a Crow lane, especially on a map like Double Swoosh, it can be very annoying, because the second that Crow can get a jump, it's just really hard for Amber to deal with. You can use slows on Amber and you can just keep your distance really easy. It's always been a tough matchup for Amber. The next 2 brawlers are snipers, so the best way to counter Amber is to stay out of her range. If you get within her range, even as a tank, you're literally going to die. So a lot of the times I look to counter Amber with brawlers like Belle and Piper. I know that's just like common knowledge that the way to counter brawlers is outranging them, but literally that is the one matchup that I really suffer with Amber, is those 2 brawlers, because Belle, you can like full tap Amber, I believe, and you also got the traps to stop Amber from kind of speeding in and killing you, so that's just really good. And then Piper as well, you can get a couple of taps in and kill Amber pretty easily. Moving into the 9th best brawler in the game and the best brawlers to counter him, it's Buster. So for me, the only really way to fully counter Buster is by fellow tanks itself. I think Buster's such an underrated brawler right now. He's so good on the grassier maps, but then on the maps that he's good in, typically that's where his counters are really strong in. So brawlers like Rosa, for example, I used to always go Rosa into a Buster back when Buster was like the best brawler in the game. Reason being is because Buster just doesn't have the up close damage to really compete with a brawler like Rosa. Rosa just absolutely shreds him in a 1v1, and she's got the hypercharge as well to help her out. Even though she's not the best in this meta, you know, Rosa's always had a good matchup against Buster. Next we have El Primo. So again, the same reason for that. Primo can just close the gap onto Buster really easily. You can jump over his shield, you can throw him around, you can just do anything to him, hypercharge as well. Primo just absolutely wrecks Buster in a 1v1. And then lastly, Daryl, an off meta one again, just like Rosa, not really the best right now, but Daryl's just really good again because he can close the gap so easily with his super. But I would say it's very situational. Jumping into the 8th best brawler in the game and the best brawlers to counter her, it's going to be Piper. So Piper typically is only countered by a few other brawlers. Of course, there's a couple of brawlers in the game that outrange her, just like Nani and Angela can outrange with the speed. So that's 2 pretty good counters already, but everyone knows that Nani counters Piper. If you're unaware, you can just one-shot Piper with Nani. Not only that, you've got the Peep that can pretty much one-shot Piper, and you've got the Return to Sender. So there's so many ways you can counter Piper with Nani. And next we have Meg. So again, another brawler which some people actually believe that Piper counters Meg, which is the craziest thing ever. All the pros draft Meg into Piper or Nani, etc. Reason being is because it takes so many shots to kill Meg. Meg is so tanky, and at least you've got the range to chip down Piper. You've also got the gadget spam. Either of the gadgets can allow you to tank multiple more shots, and it just it makes Piper push all the way back to spawn. Unless you're literally the best Piper in the game who can hit a brawler consistently, then you're going to lose to Meg every single time in the open. And then lastly, we have Max. So Max has always been used in competitive over the years to counter Piper. It does take a really good Max with some well-timed gadgets and some good speeds. But overall, if you can just run, if you can be really aggressive and get to Piper's face, you're going to be able to counter her. The next up is the 7th best brawler in the game and the best ways to counter her. It is Belle. So Belle has skyrocketed up the meta since her addition of the hypercharge. She's just been such a solid pick overall, and she can counter her counters with the additional speed boost of the hypercharge. But the best ways to counter Belle have always been, again, to outrange her. I know it's a little bit boring, but every single time I face Belle, I'm looking at brawlers like Piper and Nani. So again, if you're looking in the kind of mid-range, like in gem grab, for example, you want to pick Piper and Nani against her every single time. Again, if I'm a Belle, I play so much Belle. The matchups that I want to avoid pretty much all the time are those 2 brawlers, because they can just 1-tap you, 2-tap you really swiftly. Like Nani can easily just get one really big shot onto you and nearly kill you. Piper can shoot you once and gadget you pretty much every distance. So of course you don't really want that heat. But the thing is about Belle is that she can actually win those interactions sometimes with hypercharge. So I won't really say is a particularly really big counter to bail out there. And then lastly, it's Meg again. So if you're looking to counter any sharpshooter, I know it's boring, but Meg, that's the reason why she's like an 8-8 brawler in the meta, because she's such a good counter to Bell. You can tank multiple shots. I know you've got the super with Bell that can target Meg and allow Meg to get shredded, but at the same time, Meg can still tank a lot and push Bell back into spawn. Moving into the 6th best brawler in the game right now, the best ways to counter him, it is Leon. So even with the recent nerf, he's just so incredibly strong. But there are a few brawlers in particular, especially if you early pick Leon in the game, you can counter him. There are good ways to counter. So the first brawler is going to be Stu. Stu has always been drafted into Leon literally for years now. Years and years. The reason being is because you can dodge Leon's attacks pretty easily. And in that mid-range, Stu gets far more consistent damage. You've got the Gassy heal as well to annoy Leon. I know it's always been an overwhelming interaction. Of course, Leon can win it still with his hypercharge, but it takes a long time to get it, so Stu will win most of the time. Another great counter is Jean, so I'm talking more of the longer range maps. The reason why Jean is so good is because if Leon is invis, it's so easy to scout a Leon with a Jean shot, and then that you just predict where Leon is every single time once you just know where he is once within that super. So fully counters his super. It doesn't deal the most damage to Leon, but it's just a good counter in that way. And then the last brawler is going to be Charlie. So no, it's another meta brawler, unfortunately, but that's just the way you have to counter Leon. Charlie can just spam gadgets, push into Leon's face, and in that mid-range battle again, Charlie can easily win that with some good consistent auto-aims. And then if Leon pops a hypercharge or pops an invis, you can just waste that with Charlie's cocoon. So yeah, Charlie's just a great shutdown to Leon. Now moving into the best 5 brawlers in the game, starting off with Cordelius and the best ways to counter him. So of course, Cordelius is very limited in range, so typically you just want to keep out of his distance as much as possible. Try and pinch him out together as a team so he can't get in and behind your lines, you know, for example on dueling beetles. You try and pinch him out before he gets to your walls. Anyways, we're going to be starting off with the best counter. Again, it's Stu. Stu is such a good counter pick because the thing about Stu, you can't really trap him in the shadow realm because in that 1v1, Stu will out damage you. I know it sounds crazy, but he just out damages you. Does the same amount of damage as Cordelius, kind of. But at the same time, it's just way easier. You can keep your distance, and you can also dodge Cordelius' super with your super. So pretty good with that with Stu. The next up is going to be Spike. So again, the reason why I really like Spike against Cordelius is because you can easily keep your range against him. You can use his super to slow him. And overall, it can be really annoying for Cordelius to push into a Spike because all it takes is a couple of shots and you're deleted. So I really love picking Spike into a Cordelius. And then the last one might be a bit interesting to you guys, but it's Buster. So you might be thinking, how does Buster counter Cordelius? But trust me, it's the one brawler which you can trap into a shadow realm, and if it's a good Buster, he can just keep his distance. And again, in that range, in that 1v1, Buster can out damage Cordelius. Unless you mess up, then Cordelius can just run into you. Most of the time, the pros draft a Buster into Cordelius. It's such a good counter. Okay, so now jumping into the 4th best brawler in the game and the best ways to counter them, it is Larry and Laurie. So the best counter, hands down, has to be Edgar. So I know Edgar is just a perfect counter in a 1v1 against a lot of brawlers, but trust me, back in the Larry apocalypse, which went on for weeks, the only brawler I had any issues with was Edgar. Because you've got the hype charge, you've just got the jump that can just annihilate Larry. Larry just doesn't have the damage or the ammo really to keep up with Edgar, even if he has super as well. It's impossible for him. You saw on my second channel that I literally drafted Edgar into Larry to counter, and it worked fully. So I just love that matchup. Next is BB. So BB is a little bit, I wouldn't say off meta, just like B/A tier. But the reason why I love playing BB into Larry, again, he can't keep up with his speed. It's really hard to hit a BB who's constantly juking in and out. You think of like Dynamite, for example. BP terrorizes Dynamite, so the same happens with Larry. It's really easy to just push him into a wall and just destroy him every time. And then lastly, it's Miko. So again, Miko, just like Edgar, can jump over walls, just get into Larry. I know Miko hasn't got the capabilities to just shred him, but he can just keep jumping in and out. And then once Miko gets his super, it's game over for Larry. Jumping into the 3rd best brawler in the game and the best ways to counter her, it is Melody. So I don't know about you guys, but Melody is absolutely insane and one of the most annoying brawlers, probably the most annoying brawler to face in ranked, to be honest. So I ban her out all the time. But if you happen to face off against her in ladder or ranked, these are the best brawlers to counter her with. So starting off with Cordelius. So the main reason why Cordelius is so good against Melody is because no matter what, you can just snipe Melody across the map and it removes her notes. And of course, you can't use super within the shadow realm. So you guys know Melody deals no damage with her main attack. So you can just run up to her and destroy her every single time. Cordelius is by far the best counter to her. make sure to abuse that as much as possible because Melody is so meta right now. Next we have Stu. So again, the main reason why I like Stu is because you can get into Melody's face pretty quickly before she gets dash, and she just doesn't have the damage capabilities to keep up with Stu. Again, on my Melody rank 35 push, the one brawler I faced the most and got annoyed about the most was Stu, because it just takes forever to get close to him, and then even if you have your super, Stu can just zip away as well. So yeah, of course Stu is just like the mini version of Melody, but much more consistent in terms of DPS. And then lastly we have Charlie. So again, I know it's boring, Charlie's one of the best brawlers in the game, but sometimes that's the only option you have to counter Melody. You think of Goalkeeper's Dream, for example. How else are you supposed to stop a Melody when she has multiple supers which she can just score a quick goal? At least Charlie can quickly just shut her down with a cocoon and just stop her from flying around. So that's why you need brawlers like Cordelius and Charlie to really stop her in her tracks. But into the second best brawler in the game right now, it is Charlie, and the best brawlers to counter her with. So the first brawler is going to be Amber. So this is the brawler I see by far the most to counter Charlie with. Just in that mid-range, Amber can keep her distance. She can shoot through the Spider's gadget as well. And a lot of times you can just out wall peek as Charlie with his super as well, deal some good damage. It's just always been a good matchup. Again, I don't know the full logistics to it, but it just feels right. Especially when I'm a Charlie going up against Amber, it's just hard in that 1v1 matchup to win it every single time. Next we have Sandy. So another brawler that's typically used to counter Charlie on the more grassier maps. You've got better wall peeking capabilities with Sandy. You've also got the fact that you can shoot through the spiders with one shot. So typically a Charlie will have to just switch gadget because you'll get no value against Sandy. Again, it's just a really annoying matchup for Charlie to face off against. And then lastly we have Brock. So this is more of the open maps. I know what you might be thinking, well, why don't you just go at another long range brawler against Charlie? Well, the good thing is she's got spiders, so she'll actually counter long range brawlers like Piper and Belle, but she won't counter Brock because Brock can destroy the spiders with one shot, and Brock can keep that distance against Charlie and just win that long range engagement pretty easily. I've seen it a lot on maps like Bridge to Far. Now jumping into the best brawler in the game and the best brawlers to counter him with, it is Angelo. So Angelo is the one brawler which in a 1v1 or just in ranked, I just can't beat. If the opponents get Angelo, I know I've lost every single time because he one-shots pretty much every brawler in the game. But if you're looking to counter him, somehow if the opponents manage to draft him, or of course if playing a lot of ladder, here are the best brawlers. So starting off with Nani. It's pretty boring, but you have to counter the best brawlers in the game with other meta brawlers on long-range maps. Nani can compete kind of in that 1v1. You've also got to return to sender to at least tank the initial 4k shot, but if Angelo has the poison damage, then he still pretty much one-shots on Nani, so yeah, you've got that. Next, you have Meg. So again, the main reason why I use Meg is just to push Angelo back into spawn. Still, Angelo should just be able to rip through a Meg with the poison. It's just too much, but at least you can get some pressure against Angelo and force him a little bit back. And then the last one is going to be Mr. P. It's going to be really annoying for Angelo to deal with Mr. P porters. I don't actually think Mr. P is that great, and I actually still wouldn't draft Mr. P into Angelo that frequently, but that's a brawler that I find really annoying to face off against. Again, it's not great, but I don't know, there's not many brawlers that counter Angelo at the minute. He just one-shots everything. So that's going to be it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed this one. Let me know if there's any counters that I missed out in the comment section below. But hopefully this helps you guys, especially when you're thinking about drafting or just overall your improvement in Brawl Stars. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time.